I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, we're taking a look at a vital book, an important book. It is called How's My Driving? Why Every Other Driver Doesn't Seem to Have a Clue. It's written by a great guy, a great author. His name is Steve Dziadik. This insightful book explores the dangers of overconfidence on the road, offers practical theorems and defensive driving techniques to prevent car accidents. Join us as we uncover Steve's personal accident history and learn how to improve our driving habits for safer journeys. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today on Spotlight. We thank the team at Atticus Publishing for helping us put him in the spotlight today. And we ask viewers like you to support authors like him by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing his vital book. The links are below this interview. Steve, great to have you back on the show. You're one of my favorite guests. Welcome.
Well, thank you very much, Logan.
Great to have you here today. When you think of driving, you don't think of theorems, but you say theorems play a big role in proper driving. Tell us about that.
Well, the theorems are actually something that I came up with when I was writing the book, because what I found myself doing as I was writing and I was going through the history and a lot of the things, I found myself repeating things a lot. So ultimately what I did, and this goes back to some experience that I had in the commercial nuclear generating area, they had our procedures were set up so that there was what was called a fold-out page. And I couldn't do a fold-out page in the book, but what I wanted to do was I created 10 theorems, the idea of which these are, and every one of them begins with "I believe." All right, so they're mine, they're nobody else's. But I think that they're very useful. I think they're applicable to everybody who reads the book. And what it's done is it lets you look at something right from the beginning. There are 10 of them, read them, and then as you go through the book, there's going to be referrals back to these 10 theorems. So if I'm talking about a particular topic and something is, for instance, the first one has to do with the fact that I don't think anybody gets up in the morning and brushes their teeth and washes their hair and whatever and goes out and gets into the car with want to be the worst driver on the road. I'm sorry.
Right.
but it's I just don't think that. And
yeah.
I could do an anti-theorem to that if you would. I could do I don't think they don't go out with that being the best driver, but anyway, that's kind of what they are, and there's 10 of them.
Basically affirmations to make you a better driver.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Absolutely.
That sounds great. Now, your personal accident history plays into this. Hopefully you haven't had a lot of accidents. Hopefully you haven't had some bad accidents. I know for my own accidents, almost every time it was one of two things. It was speed. I was going too fast, maybe past the speed limit or the conditions. And the other was I wasn't paying enough attention. So that's been my fender bender story. Tell us about your personal accident history.
Well, I've got a couple of literally near-death experiences. Oh. And one of them that I got into was with my wife. And she unfortunately was 7 months pregnant when we got into this crash, and we lost the unborn child. And I'm going to be honest with you, both of us should not have survived the crash. It was that bad. Yeah. It's a miracle that we were saved. I think part of the reason I did get saved is so that I can tell people about that experience. I want to share that with people. And it's one of the experiences in the book. The reason being is because most people don't actually experience crashes. They think they know what it'll feel like until it happens, and then it's a totally different thing. It literally changes your perspective on how you view everything.
Yeah.
So that was the first one. Then about 9 years later, I was involved in a head-on collision, which you're not supposed to survive those either. And fortunately, and good blessings, I survived that. The car was destroyed. There were 5 people involved, and fortunately nobody got killed this time. But it's still, I go over that in the book so that people can understand. I took my eyes off the road for Logan for 2 seconds. 2 seconds. Yeah. And I was just answering a question for a guy that was sitting next to me. Bingo, that was a car coming right at me head on. And under those conditions, you can't do anything.
Thank God you survived both accidents. I know the first accident was particularly tragic for you and your wife. What advice do you have for our viewers and your readers of your book based upon your accident history?
I guess you kind of said it was the second, you said there were two parts. The
Yeah,
one that you alluded to second was probably the most important one, and that is staying aware of your surroundings.
yeah,
When you're in a car, it's not, yay, we're at 30 miles an hour and we can take our eyes off everything. The faster you go, the more energy's in your car.
yeah.
The more energy in your car, that means you have, if you do run into somebody, there's going to be a worse crash. I have a formula, if you will. I call it the driver's recipe in there called SIPDER. It almost spells the word spider.
Mhm.
And what it stands for is the S stands for search, the I stands for identify. And basically what I'm doing is I'm saying, keep your eyes open and notice what's going on around you. Then identify in that what you see, things that could be a problem. And then predict what they're going to do so that you can then make a decision about what you're going to do, execute your plan. And then the last thing that works, makes the whole thing functional is repeat. So it's search, identify, predict, decide, execute, repeat. And there's no place in there for cell phones. There's no place in there for eating McDonald's or
Yeah.
anybody else's sandwiches.
That's your defensive driver recipe, right?
Yes, sir.
Fighter.
And
Yeah, that's great advice. It's a great acronym for people to remember because it just might save your life. Tell us about Insurance 101.
one of the things that in my career, I actually was worked for Allstate Insurance Company
Mhm.
and for several years, and I sold automobile and homeowners insurance primarily.
Mhm.
And one of the things that I found out dealing with people, because we would review their policies, is that people don't know very much about insurance. They know that it's something they have to have. They're not sure, honestly, they're not quite sure why. And one of the things that I did is I did an insurance introduction to 101. And then what I did is I explained policies and how they're broken down, what you typically see, and what it means to you, and what it means if you don't have it. Because if you get at the scene of an accident or crash, I prefer to call them, then that's not the time to find out you didn't have enough.
Mhm.
It's something you should know before you ever get into the car and put the key in the ignition. So what I've done in here is this is not something to replace people going to their agent and getting a periodic review, because insurance is not something that really is standardized and you buy one size fits all,
Right.
because everybody has different assets and they have different things that have to be protected. So, and they change throughout your life. So you should do periodic reviews. But what I did find out is that an awful lot of people just really don't have any idea what it is, other than money spent that doesn't seem to benefit them.
Yeah.
And I've been in an emergency room a couple of times, and I've looked around and I've never seen anybody complain about the price of their insurance in the emergency
Yeah.
room.
Exactly. Exactly. Once you're in an accident, once you need it, everybody wants the best insurance you could possibly have. And that is very, very true. Those are powerful words. I never heard anybody complain about their insurance while in the emergency room, or the price of it at least.
Yes.
Very, very true. Now, one of the topics we're going to touch today is put a fish on my car. Tell us what that's all about. You have me very much intrigued with that.
Okay. Well, when I was writing the book, I looked at a lot of people. That's why every other driver doesn't need to have a clue. It's not meant to be nasty to anybody, but a lot of people don't understand what they seem like they're doing. And one of the things that and my wife did it, she put one of those fish that symbolizes her faith in Jesus Christ
Mhm.
and on the car. And I wanted to put that on my car, but I realized that I wasn't a very good representative.
Mhm.
And in order to put that on there, you have to understand that you're going to go under a microscope.
Yeah.
And if you have that microscope on you, then you got to be driving defensively. You have to be driving authoritatively. You have to be driving on purpose, and you can't be getting road rage or any of the things like that. So that's one of my goals. And in the book, I explain that it's not to put some fish on your car that's going to smell, but the idea is to have something on there that lets people know that the driver is somebody who has a faith that they try to live by.
Yeah, absolutely. It humanizes a driver. Maybe they won't get so angry with you if you try to get on the highway or change
Absolutely.
lanes. Those are the unforgivable things nowadays, Steve. You try to get on a highway, you're not allowed. You try to change lanes, you're not allowed. I mean, people literally speed up or cut around you to make sure you can't get on a highway or change lanes. It's crazy. I almost don't put on my signal now because if I put on my signal, the guy who's 5 car lengths behind me is going to speed up so I can't come over. So
Well, I would discourage that, and the reason I would discourage it is because the whole idea in the turn signal is to let them know what you indicate you're going to do. And
exactly,
if they do that, then there's, the best thing in the world you can do is just wait and let them go by.
exactly,
There's
exactly.
nothing about being in a hurry that's going to save you, because if you get into a crash, all the energy gets absorbed, and in any case, I'm a great believer in turn signals. I use them all the time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, you're very right. And I was being a little facetious.
I
But
understand.
yeah, yeah, yeah. One of the first, when I was taking driving instruction as a kid, just a teenager, like 16 years old, the very first thing the teacher told me when I got into the car was speed kills. It was a very simple sentence, and it always stuck with me, and it's very, very true. And I'd imagine that's a sentence you concur with, Steve.
Oh, absolutely. The thing that most people don't know, and they didn't, because they don't study physics or that kind of stuff. Physics describe how things work.
Mhm.
And one of the things about cars, or even us, if we're walking along and we walk into a wall, the energy that's in you at the time of that impact has to be displaced. It has to go somewhere. And usually it goes into breaking your nose
Yeah,
or
it ain't
something.
going into the wall. The wall's not
No, it
moving.
ain't going into the wall. The wall's not going to get hurt. Uh,
Exactly, exactly.
but in cars, it would be interesting, I guess. It would be what people think is that the energy goes up at the same time speed does. And that's true, but it
Right,
doesn't go up uniformly. It goes up exponentially.
right,
So when you are doing 1 mile an hour in a 4,000 pound car, you're going to have X amount of energy.
right.
When you go 2 miles an hour, you're going to have 4 times that amount of energy. When you go 4 miles an hour, you're going to have 4 times the original, and it just keeps going up exponentially. So that my 4,000 pound car at 70 miles an hour has roughly 10 million pounds of energy in it. And that energy has to be removed in a controlled manner, or nature will take over and do it in a way that's not very healthy for anybody. Does
Exactly.
that
Well,
make
this
sense?
this book is a great wake-up call to our young drivers out there, our middle-aged drivers out there, our older drivers out there. In other words, all drivers. This
Yes,
is
sir.
an essential book. Steve is a professional. He's been a professional car instructor for many years as well, in addition to his other careers that he has had during his life. This book is called How's My Driving? Why Every Other Driver Doesn't Seem to Have a Clue. It's an insightful book that explores the dangers of overconfidence on the road, offers practical theorems that Steve has invented that'll help be affirmations to make you a better driver, and defensive driving tips to help prevent car accidents as well. Steve, thanks so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
It was my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Great having you on the show. Always enjoyable speaking with you, and always great advice. To the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time until next time on Spotlight.